Can a relationship with an asexual and sexual person work or not? That is the question on everyone's mind on the second day of Asexual Perspectives Awareness Month. Welcome to Asexualise, My Asexual Life. This is a place to be for education about asexuality, so subscribe and hit the bell icon right now. So Asexuality Awareness Month has been and gone, I think. Asexual. This is Asexual Perspectives Awareness Month, not Asexual Awareness Day or week or whatever. This is Asexual Perspectives Awareness Month, right? This is unique to this channel. So, Asexual Perspectives Awareness Month is celebrating our differences across the asexual spectrum. So, let's crack on. So, can a relationship with a sexual and asexual person work or not? Like, this has got different perspectives in here, including someone who is ace with someone who's not asexual. So, this is really interesting. But I'll get onto that in a minute. So, I started off this video by talking about Asexual Perspectives Awareness Month. Yes, I founded it in 2018. So you may have seen Asexual Perspectives Awareness Month before, come and gone, but now it's here again for July. It's always July of every year since 2018. So, do you believe if a sexual person had a relationship with an asexual, it can work? And what do you think about it being fair or not? So, Philippa Duke's story in Asexual Perspectives book. Grab a copy on Amazon if you haven't already got one of these books. I know that I would be highly suspicious if someone told me they could deal with not having sex after a life of it being part of the relationship process. I would be questioning them at every corner, waiting for them to try it on or something. I really don't think I could trust that they are telling the truth or truly understand just how big of a no it is as to me ever having sex with them. I suspect they would want to change me like they think they have the cure. No, 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 no. I don't have enough trust in me to do that. Just like I can't turn my sexual on, how could they turn their sexual off? I think that's a good point. But, if an asexual person, for example, ends up in a relationship with a heterosexual, you can't deny each other's sexual orientations. Whether an asexual chooses to have sex with the sexual person or whether the sexual person chooses to stay not having sex, for example, because you have to respect each other's differences in terms of sexuality. Like, I have been in relationships with heterosexuals. The last relationship I had was with a heterosexual guy, and I do attract the really highly sexual guys. But, you can't deny that person's heterosexual, just like they can't deny you're asexual. You have to be realistic about that and you have to be accepting of it. But you have to discuss beforehand whether you're going to have sex or not, whether it's even a possibility. And for me, it's off the table with a guy. It's like, I'm not having sex with anyone because I'm not interested in that, even though I've had sex in the past. So I think it's really important that you stipulate your boundaries in the very early process of dating. If you're on dating sites, it's much better if you talk about it upfront and honestly. Do not start getting acquainted with the person, start getting attached to the person, and then that be a deal breaker. Because for many people, it is a deal breaker. Many heterosexuals do want, like, and need sex, and they can't be without it. So it's better to be upfront about that. Put it in your profile and say, hey, I don't like sex. I'm not interested in it. Don't think just because someone likes your personality, they're automatically going to be able to do without sex, because there might be lots of people with nice personalities out there that do want sex. Obviously, if someone wants you specifically, and the criteria for that is not having sex, then they either have the option to be with you and not have sex, or to not be with you at all if you wanted to be with them. Right? So you have to be honest and upfront. I see asexuals in groups sometimes asking, like, when should I come out as asexual? Like, I've been dating this guy for a few weeks now, for a few months. When should I tell them? You should have told them in your bio. You should have told them up front that you're asexual and sexual orientation and let them know what that is. Shouldn't be a case of waiting 3 months or 4 months to tell someone. You just tell them up front, because for most people it is a deal breaker. And I don't think it's fair for them to get to know you and get attached to you, or you to get to know them and get attached to them, when it's completely a deal breaker for them. You know, like in conversation when I'm on dating sites, which I'm not active on anymore, but when I was active on them, I would ask them about, marriage and kids, or I'd see it in their bio and I'm like, you want marriage? I don't want marriage. You want kids? I'm really not interested. Oh, but I don't want it now. I'm like, well, I never want it. And I don't do casual relationships or short-term relationships. So it wouldn't work. You know what I'm saying? So you got to bear all this stuff in mind. So, Ari's story. Do you believe if a sexual person had a relationship with an asexual, it can work? And what do you think about being fair or not? I like to think it can. I don't have a lot of asexual friends or role models to point to such a relationship, but I hope so. I think it would come down to if the people could find a compromise to their mutual satisfaction. Is the asexual person willing to occasionally have sex with their partner? Question mark. Is a sexual person willing to accept never having sex with their partner? Question mark. I don't think it's a matter of fairness. That sounds like blaming the ace person for... I wasn't blaming the ace person when I wrote that, by the way, for maliciously denying their long-suffering partner the sex they deserve. But compatibility. So they said here in this sentence, I don't think it's a matter of fairness. That sounds like blaming the ace person for maliciously denying their long-suffering partner the sex they deserve, but compatibility. So they don't think it's about fairness. They think it's about compatibility, which is true. And actually, it's interesting because when I was thinking this, I was thinking, actually, it's not fair to the asexual person to be with a sexual person if the sexual person really can't live without sex, So I know a lot of people blame asexuals and say it's not fair to deny the sexual partner the sex. I don't think it's fair of any partner to be with someone and expect them to do something that they don't want to do. So I don't actually think it's fair for a sexual person to be with an asexual person if they really want sex, because actually it stops the asexual person finding someone who's more suitable for them. If the sexual person saying they can live without sex when they can't actually live without sex, that asexual person is then under false pretenses in that relationship, and they are being treated unfairly by the sexual person. If a sexual person really wants a sexual partner as well as romantic partner, and the asexual person isn't comfortable with sexuality, then they should just break up. It's not a matter of who's at fault. It's just incompatible orientation. And I do agree that's true. If an asexual doesn't want sex, a sexual person does, and that's it. There is no way they're going to be compatible for each other long term, and they shouldn't be together. It's as simple as that. That's why if you're on dating sites, don't bother trying to make something work if it doesn't work. If the person needs sex and you don't want sex, don't even carry on in that connection, because it's just going to lead to heartache, heartbreak, and pain. So, Andy P, does Andy believe that? I definitely think it could work. So they think a sexual and asexual relationship could work. Like with any other relationship, you just need to find someone compatible. I'm not saying it would be easy. It'd just involve finding someone that could accept your limits and be happy with that. A big part of that would be accepting that happiness and not handling everything fearfully. If you trust them to be with you, maybe trust them to tell you if it can't work for them after all. And I think that is a very important point. Like, without trust, you haven't got any type of relationship whatsoever. Relationships built on trust. If you can't trust a person, it can't last anyway. But it is all to do with compatibility. Like, I love kissing so much. So I need to find someone who's compatible with me in terms of kissing, which is really difficult for me to get because the majority of asexuals don't like kissing that much. I'm only into guys, and there tends to be more female asexuals, and I'm really romantic, hyper romantic, and a lot of asexuals tend to be not romantic than romantic. So I've got disadvantages in that way. And, I love kissing so much. Like, someone loves sex. I don't love sex, but I love kissing as much as someone else loves loads of sex. I love loads of kissing. So it's really difficult to find someone who's compatible with me in that way. But it doesn't mean to say it's, impossible. I've just got to find someone who's like, kissing is the thing for them, if you know what I mean. Isadora's story. Do you believe if a sexual person has a relationship with an asexual, it can work? And what do you think about it being fair or not? That depends entirely on the people involved. If they can talk openly about what they want and don't want and find a common ground, then they can definitely make it work. I also don't like the argument about an asexual being unfair. If you want sex that badly, go find another sexual person to have it with. It's not like you're being deprived of food and water. Not having sex won't kill you. And I totally agree with that. Like, I've had even comments on this channel and go, oh, like the asexuals not having sex. And it's just as bad an asexual not not having sex, like denying sex to the sexual, as it is the sexual asking the asexual for sex. But it's not the same thing, because asking an asexual for sex who doesn't want it can lead to sexual abuse. Like, not having sex is not going to lead to sexual abuse. Do you know what I mean? So Isadora is completely correct. Like, not having sex is not going to kill you. It's not like it's an absolute essential need, which is how it's plugged by society. Yes, if you want to procreate naturally, you'll need to do that if you want it, that genital penile sex. But other than that, you know what I mean? It isn't necessary. You don't have to have it. You'll still be alive. Right, so this is Anne's story. Do you believe if a sexual person had a relationship with an asexual, it can work? It may be able to, though I don't doubt those relationships can be challenging as any other. Fairness is a difficult thing to gauge. If both mutually agree to have sex or not with each other and are able to openly communicate what they want or need, it may be able to work. Then again, if the word unfair comes into play, as if the relationship has some sort to tally sheet for who gets the most concessions out of it, then it wouldn't augur well for the future. So yeah, I use the word bode well for the future. So I think that's totally true, as Anne says. Like, if you're talking about what's fair and what isn't fair, it does sound like it's more of a competition, and it's not good. It shouldn't be like that. So there does need to be a great deal of communication in a relationship between a sexual person and asexual person, more so than in any other relationship, I believe, because you're two completely different sexualities. So I think that it's got to be even more communication than it would be usually in any other relationship, because of the complete different contrast between someone who's really sexually driven and someone who's not driven at all by sex. For example, I'm not saying all asexuals are the same, all sexual persons are the same. I think it's probably better if a sexual person who's not that bothered about sex can go without it because they haven't had it for years, for example. Maybe they're still a virgin and they don't mind dying a virgin. I think it's probably better for someone like that to be with an asexual person, someone who doesn't really miss it. Someone hasn't done it that much, right? I have seen the occasional person on a website. Well, I saw one on Facebook dating a long time ago who was British, and he was like, "Oh, I used to have loads of sex, but basically, like, I've now I've like done all that. I want to just settle down." And he approached me once, and I just didn't pay any attention to him because I thought if your past is full of having sex, then Do you know what I mean? Are you really going to be able to live without it? Probably not. And I'm not really into British guys anyway. But the way he phrased it was though he's done all that and he doesn't need to do that much anymore because he's like kind of like maxed that out. But you know what I mean? It was a weird thing he was putting in his profile. Very, very strange. So I think it's important to talk to the individual person, you know, as well, and see what their needs really are. They can put a lot in their bio that isn't actually true as well, unfortunately. So yeah, okay. So this is Claire Evelyn's story. I think an asexual person can have a relationship with an asexual, but it will be a lot of compromise and really depends on how sexual the person is. There are so many things going on in the relationship that it would just be another discussion point. But it will really depend on the people if they're willing to make it work. And I totally agree with that as well. Like, you both have to really want to make the relationship work with any relationship on all aspects of it. If one person is more into making it work than the other person, it will just be one-sided and it will just feel awful, you know? It's a bit like a dog taking you for a walk when you don't really want to go. You know what I mean? It's not good. It doesn't feel good. Right. So Darcy's story. This is really interesting. And I just wanted to share this because this person is in a long-term relationship with a bisexual person. It's working out wonderfully well because this person understands asexuality. They even researched it when I told them, and they were of the opinion that they could do without sex to be with me, meaning that they respect me and care enough that it wasn't even an issue. So this is Darcy in an asexual perspectives. So they're asexual with a bisexual person and don't have sex. So I think it's a really important one to end with. And so I think at whatever stage you're at in your life, I think it's really important for you to decide on an individual basis whether you think as an asexual person you could make a relationship work with a sexual. I think the word make a relationship work is a bit harsh because if you're trying to make it so that it's forced that way, then I don't think it's necessarily a good thing. I think two people have to consciously enter into that union and both be okay about being in that type of relationship together. You know, like a asexual person really still has to sacrifice a lot by being with a sexual. I hear so many people going, oh, the poor sexual person, they're so hard done by because they're denied sex and it's really difficult for them. But if they do want sex that badly, as they say in my book, then don't be with an asexual person. If it's really depriving you and making you feel so bad, then don't be with an asexual person. If you're with an asexual, then be with them as they are, you know? But it is not good for asexuals. If they end up being with a sexual person, they feel guilty that they're not having sex with them. They feel like they should be. They feel like the sexual person makes them feel guilty for being deprived. Or they feel guilty anyway because they feel like they should be doing more for the sexual person. If the sexual person is really sexual but they're not having sex, it can make the asexual feel inadequate, can make the asexual feel fearful of actually the sexual person leaving them. It can make the asexual person feel like uncomfortable. It can make the asexual person like question themselves in the relationship. And plus, it denies the asexual person the opportunity to find someone who can really live without sex or be with another asexual person if the sexual person isn't honest. That's my greatest fear, is if a sexual person isn't honest about the fact they can live without sex or not. Because often they can't and they pretend they can, and that's really bad. But I do believe there are some sexuals who can live without sex, especially if they haven't had it for years or they're still a virgin, or maybe they they're a person who just wants to like use their sexual energy in other ways, and they're a very conscious person. They've done a lot of work on themselves and they think, oh, I want to conserve my sexual energy for more productive tasks and things like that. There are people in the world that do that. There are some people that do abstain, obviously, and there are some people that are impotent. And so they desire love just as much as anyone else. So I think, anyone who doesn't have sex, who's impotent or got a disability, they could consider being with an asexual. But obviously, if they are still very sexually driven, they still get a lot of sexual cravings. They still get a lot of sexual frustration because they can't have sex. Then that's not going to be good, because they could kind of be angry and frustrated and take that out on the asexual person if they haven't come to terms with the fact that they can't do that. Whereas an asexual person, in the main, if they're a pure asexual who doesn't experience any sexual attraction, they don't have the innate need or desire in the first place to have sex. They're not suppressing or repressing an urge that they don't get. Whereas someone who's got disability or who's, impotent, they aren't able to have sex even if they want to, and it gets very frustrating for them. So I think all these type of things have to be taken into consideration. But compatibility is a huge issue. That's what makes or breaks relationships. How compatible are you in multiple aspects of your life? Career goals, goals for the relationship, deal breakers, not just sex, but marriage and kids, where you want to live, how you see your future, all these type of things, how you see finances. Are you going to merge your finances or not? How you live your life. Like, what do you prioritize? What do they prioritize? What do you value most? What do they value most? All these things have to come into play with deciding whether the relationship's right. It's not just about sex or no sex. And, you could have a fantastic heterosexual person and a great asexual person be a very hot, cute couple together. I don't think that that's impossible. I think it depends on the people involved in the relationship, how much they love each other, how much they have in common, and how they're compatible in other ways or not. So yeah, what do you think? Do you think a relationship between an asexual person and a sexual person can work or not? Let me know in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell icon, and use hashtag APAM, Asexual Perspectives Awareness Month, in your social media if you're talking about this. Lots of love. Don't forget, like I said, subscribe, hit the bell icon, thumbs up if you like this video. I'll see you soon on the next video live stream. Lots of love. Bye.